In the Academy Award-winning film Braveheart, Mel Gibson plays the protagonist, William Wallace, who fights for Scottish independence against English rule. Wallace befriends a man named Robert the Bruce, who is the king of the Scots. And Robert comes to admire Wallace for his courage because he doesn't have the same kind of fearlessness that Wallace demonstrates. One day, Wallace comes to him and says to him, Robert, as the king of the Scots, you're the only one who could bring the Scottish clan together to overcome the English. And while Robert really wants to do that, he has some really corrupt people around him who eventually convince Robert to betray William Wallace on the battlefield. Well, in one of the final battle scenes of the film, the two of them square off. But Wallace doesn't know that on the other side is his friend because he's in full armor. So Wallace, as they are battling one-on-one on the field, Wallace eventually gets the better of him, and as he's ready to take his life, he removes his helmet only to reveal it's his trusted friend, Robert the Bruce. Wallace drops to his knees in utter disbelief. It is betrayal. It is a stab in the back that goes deeper than any sword or knife. And that scene is so memorable because it's happened to so many of us. Maybe not in the battlefield, but we've all had similar moments where we've been in a relationship with somebody, a friend or a partner, not just an acquaintance, somebody that we know, love, and trust, and that person ends up hurting you, whether it was intentional or not. And sometimes that hurt also happens in the context of church. So today we want to ask the question, how do I deal with church hurt without losing my faith? Church hurt, disillusionment, and even hypocrisy is a big reason why people are walking away from the church, for good, or they are starting to deconstruct their faith altogether because of all the hurt that's going on. Now, one pastor defines church hurt. I'm going to put this up here, up on the screen. Church hurt refers to the pain inflicted by religious institutions, its people, and/or its leadership. Pain that distances sufferers from their communities and sometimes from God. And so church hurt describes a wide range of experience where you are wounded or betrayed or had some trust broken by somebody in the church or somebody who represents the church, whether it's a pastor or a leader of some kind. Now, let me ask you for a raise of hands, how many of you here have never experienced directly or indirectly church hurt? Never experienced that. Raise your hand. Take a look around the room. Only a few hands. In the first service, there was not a single hand that was raised, right? And so this is so prevalent in our day. And maybe for some of you at some point in the past, you're really excited about your faith. And you jumped in somewhere at the church, you started serving. And all of a sudden, over time, you begin to feel like you're being taken advantage of, right? Like you are going above and beyond. You're working way, and you got no appreciation. You got burnt out and nobody seemed to care. Maybe you felt shamed or shunned or gossiped about because of some unwanted divorce, or you relapsed into some addiction. And instead of the people coming around you and loving you and supporting you and walking with you, instead, what happened was you got judged, you got blacklisted, or you got punished. Or maybe you felt disillusioned and betrayed because of some widespread church scandal that got exposed, or the secret life of some celebrity pastor that you follow on social media got revealed. Or maybe it was somebody in the church that used their position of authority to control or manipulate you for their own selfish gain. Whatever it is, as a result, what happens is you kind of pushed away from people, you pushed away from church, and you can't help but to see every church, every leader, every pastor through the lens of criticism or suspicion. And as a pastor, I understand the ramifications of what we are dealing with. I mean, I understand what is at stake because of how it affects people. I remember my pastor from college, where I became a Christian, right before I went to seminary, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, son, you need to remember this as you go into ministry. It takes years to build trust, but you can break it in just one moment." And it's true, right? And when trust gets broken, spirits get crushed. Here's the thing, though. That same pastor that I looked up to during my most formative Christian years, where I became a Christian, I later discovered, and this was 3 or 4 years ago, right in the middle of COVID, so not that long ago, I discovered that he had admitted to sexually assaulting a young woman in the congregation. The very pastor who said you can break trust in just a moment. As a result of that, I have a lot of friends where we went to that same church, and some who are even pastors, who have walked away from the church or even the faith altogether. There was and continues to be so much hurt. And so church hurt is kind of like autoimmune disease. If you know what happens, it's where the body's natural defense system can't tell the difference between normal, healthy cells and foreign, dangerous cells. And so what it does is the body starts to attack healthy cells and tissues and organs in its fight against disease and infection. And I would say that church hurt is like spiritual autoimmune disease within the body of Christ, where the body of Christ starts to attack itself. And then we start to see each other as other believers as enemies instead of being family. Which is why Paul, among many things he says to the church in Galatia, says this: "For the whole law can be summed up in this one command: love your neighbor as yourself." And he's addressing some church hurt that was going on, some church division. And he says, if you're always biting and devouring one another, watch out. Beware of destroying one another. I mean, division and hate was going on all over the place. And as a result of this very real hurt, what can happen, and this happens today too, is we start to reduce God to the worst behaviors of just a very few people. We think, man, these people did this, they abused or manipulated, they controlled in this way, and we attribute that to God himself. And so that leads some people to walk away from the church or walk away from faith altogether. It's kind of like Dorothy when she travels to Oz, right? And she gets a peek behind the curtain. And disillusioned, we kind of click our heels and we see behind the curtains and we go like, that's it. You know what? If this is Christianity, I'm done. I'm done with church. Maybe I love Jesus, but not the church. I'm done with this. And the reality is, most people's disillusionment with God or the church is not so much theological as much as it is relational. Right? As a result of being hurt by people, we kind of push back. And as a result, we become very reluctant. We become very cautious of ever stepping inside the church again. When I was a kid growing up, my parents never allowed us to have a dog. My younger brother and I, we asked, begged, and they kept saying no. Well, one day, a stray dog appeared on our doorsteps, and he not only came back once, but weeks after and months after. But this stray dog, it was really apparent that he had been abused because he would never let us near him. Now, that stray dog we eventually named Piaget the stray. Really creative there. And, that's not a picture of Piaget, but kind of looked like that. He just always appeared like, no matter how much food or drink we gave him, whenever we tried to inch close to him, he would just kind of back off and give us that look. Well, see, I've met a lot of people like that who have been hurt and abused by people or others in church. And I would say no fault of their own. And what happens is, because of that hurt, this invisible wall goes up and they're like, stay away from me. You get close and they just kind of back off. And can I say, that is so understandable. That is so normal. That is human. That is a human natural defense mechanism that comes into play. But can I also say, as a pastor who loves you and cares about your well-being, that is not what you were made for. God has so much more for you than that. And so I want to say a couple things around church hurt. First is this: because we are relational beings who are broken and flawed, it means that when you enter into a relationship that's within the church or anywhere else, you are always susceptible to being hurt. And on the flip side, because we're broken and flawed human beings, we are also capable of hurting others. So because as flawed human beings, we are both susceptible to being hurt, and that's also inside the church. Same time, we also have to acknowledge we are all capable of hurting other people, whether it's intentional or not. And so first, we need to acknowledge that church hurt is real within the body of Christ. Some of you have been hit by shrapnel with the church, right? And I just want you to know that whatever happened to you, we believe you. And it is very, very real. And I would say this, the only thing worse than denying our possible role, the church's possible role in someone else's hurt, is to diminish your experience of hurt. And so we don't want to sweep it under the rug. We don't want to get defensive. We don't want to tell you, well, hey man, just get over it, move on. That's not helpful to say that, right? It is real, and your hurt is real, and it's important. And so it's what you can't do is just say, well, move on. It's kind of like when you drop something and it shatters or you spill some juice on the kitchen floor, right? You can't just say, well, let's just ignore it and move on, right? Because at some point it's going to get sticky, it's going to start to smell, and it's going to rot. And you can't just overlook the offense or the bitterness without some necessary cleanup like you do that spilled juice, which means that you who've been hurt, that part of that healing is you need to be seen. You need to be heard. And if there is abuse that has occurred or there's been some kind of injustice, I would say that needs to be addressed. And unfortunately, in worst case scenarios, that even means legal action because it was some sort of sexual assault or any number of things. Unfortunately, I wish this was not the case. Unfortunately, it is, because churches are filled with broken and flawed human beings, and that includes pastors and leaders. Now, cleaning up involves seeking forgiveness, even if reconciliation is impossible because maybe the person doesn't see the hurt or doesn't want to forgive you. You still need to seek forgiveness. That becomes not only important, but absolutely critical and powerful necessary step in your process of healing. I'm not going to say too much about forgiveness. A couple months ago, we talked about forgiveness the first Sunday of Lent, where we talked about Jesus first saying on the cross when he said, Father, forgive them. I want to encourage you to go watch and listen to that where we dive more into forgiveness. And so forgiveness is a necessary and absolutely essential part of the process. At the same time, can I also say, and I think most congregation members don't think about this, church hurt is a two-way street. Believe it or not, pastors experience a lot of church hurt as well, maybe for a different set of reasons. And I'll say there have been seasons in the past, distant past, in church leadership where I was given like a whole shotgun full of criticism, where I got blamed for something that necessarily wasn't my fault or I didn't even know about, or I poured time and energy into some leaders or people, only to have them randomly just leave the church without telling me, or as they were leaving, parting some last goodbye for reasons that I thought were very surface level. And during one of those seasons in particular, I sat down with a friend and a mentor. He was a retired pastor, and I was telling him about some of this church hurt. And he slid a piece of paper right in front of me, and he said this, Sung, I want you to write down the names of every single person who has hurt you. So I was like, man, this is going to be fun, right? I'm like, man, that's not enough paper. Give me some more paper. I got a whole boatload of names. So I grabbed the pen, grabbed the paper, started writing down names. And here's what surprised me. I came up with maybe a half dozen names, but it was a lot less than I thought it was. What happened is all that aggregation had kind of accumulated and grown and expanded in my own heart and mind. And as I wrote those names, he said, is that it? I said, I guess so. He turned to me and said, Sung, all those names there, you need to forgive. And he said this, because it's not the church that hurt you. It was a few misguided people within the church who hurt you. And that's a big difference. And so I want to say this. There's a response card in front of your chairs in the back pockets. I want you to grab that. And right now, or even during the duration of the sermon, I want you to start writing down names, specific names of people in the church that have hurt you. Right? Here's a picture of mine, right? Just so you know, none of your names are on there. Although at the bottom I put previous church members don't remember all their names. I don't know if it's because it's too much or I just don't remember, which means it's just a broad general hurt, but there's a few names that I can remember. Most of them happened years and years ago. Right? So go ahead and take some time, grab that response card, and start writing down names. Don't worry, we're not going to collect it. I'm not going to go through and say, oh, look, they put my name down there, right? There's Sung Kim. No, don't worry. You could take it home, throw it out. I don't care. But we're going to use it at the end of the sermon. Start writing down names. And so first thing is we need to acknowledge that church hurt is real. And we need to pursue forgiveness, even if the other party doesn't deserve forgiveness or even want forgiveness, so that we can be healed. But second thing, we need to acknowledge what church hurt is not. And I want to be careful in my tone here because some of you have been through some really recent church hurt. And that hurt is really raw right now. You've come through that, and it's kind of like the board game Operation. I don't know if kids play that these days, but I did as a kid. You know, you touch the side a little bit, and it goes off. Right? I just know that sometimes a topic like this, for some people, even just a little touch can trigger a lot of memories, trauma, distress. And so I want to say this with a lot of love and kindness about what church hurt is not. And here's the other thing I want to say. When I talk about what church hurt is not, I am not justifying spiritual abuse here or any other church that you've had. We are not justifying narcissism from the pastor or the leaders here or anywhere else. We are not justifying any of that. But I think we need to make a clear distinction of what church hurt is not. First of all, church hurt is not disagreement. Let's say we make a decision on something that you disagree with. That's not church hurt. At the same time, we can say it in a way that is very disagreeable and say even in a way that is hurtful or say it in a wrong tone, and that is wrong, right? But disagreement in and of itself is not church hurt. Another one might be confrontation. It's in the moments when I've been confronted by a friend that I have actually grown the most spiritually. And it's usually a close friend who knows me, not some acquaintance who doesn't really know me. When they come and they say to me, Sung, you're acting like a fool, right? So that pain, even though it's painful, is actually for my good, and it doesn't mean that I've been harmed. Now, can somebody say that in a way that is harmful? Yes, okay? And closely linked to that is accountability. When somebody holding you accountable to God's standard and loving you enough to come back and ask you some tough questions, that is not church hurt. That is very uncomfortable, but that's not church hurt, right? Or being told no. You have this great idea for a church program. We should do this at Grace. And then John says to you, thank you, but no thank you, right? Like, no, we're not going to do that. Maybe you're offended by that, but that is not church hurt. Okay. By the way, John's like the friendliest pastor on our staff, so I don't know that that'd be real. But here's one thing. There may be times you're in the lobby and I make eye contact with you and I don't necessarily smile at you, right? Please don't take that as church hurt. Really? No, I'm serious, right? Like I'm probably thinking about the sermon or something and whatever, right? Or some of you are like really, you love hugs and I'm just like, I don't. Like, don't take that as church hurt, right? I'll also say too, I work not only as a pastor, but I also serve our tribe and our denomination in helping and serving other churches and pastors. And can I say, most churches, majority of churches and pastors, most pastors are defeated, discouraged, and especially during COVID, most of them want to quit, but most of them feel like they can't. Like, what else am I going to do? Sell cars? Sell insurance, right? And I would say, while that is true for a lot of pastors, that is not true for me. I've had moments in the past where there was a lot of hurt, but I will say all of you make it a joy for me to serve, for all of us to serve. I love being your pastor, but can I say that is the exception, not the norm. And here's the other thing that happens. You know, I've said this before, hurt people hurt people. And so what happens when pastors are burnt out, discouraged, defeated, they're hurt, sometimes unfairly? What do? They start dishing out hurt because they've been hurt. Again, I'm not justifying the hurt that you've experienced, but I want you to understand also a little bit about being in this seat. When you're on the platform, the punching bag isn't too far, okay? I'll never forget what one mentor said to me right before I stepped into vocational ministry. He said to me, "Sung, you have to remember that when you go into ministry, three things you're going to require. First of all, you need to develop the courage of a lion, because you're going to make some decisions that are going to be unpopular. You're going to make some hard decisions that people don't understand or don't agree with, and you got to make those decisions anyway. And so you need the courage of a lion. At the same time, you need the skin of a rhino, because people are going to take shots at you. They're going to, whether you deserve it or not, they're going to attack you, criticize you, talk behind your back. So you need to develop some really thick skin. Fortunately, I have that. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean I'm always sensitive to people." Then he said this, I'll never forget this last one. I'm like, okay, check, I think those are good. He said, not only do you need a courage of a lion and the skin of a rhino, but you need to keep your heart as soft as a teddy bear. Because what can happen is your courage can turn into abrasiveness. Your skin, your tough skin, can become calloused. And when that happens, your heart can become as hard as stone. And that's when you get jaded and cynical and hurt happens all around you. So that's not just true here, but that's true when you read the New Testament. This is true all throughout history. A casual reading of the Bible, especially the New Testament, you'll see the church has never been a trouble-free zone. Never. There have always been problems in the church. Fortunately, in our short 14-and-a-half-year history, we haven't had to deal with a lot of this. But I will say, in fact, when you read much of the New Testament, you read Paul's epistles, if it weren't for church hurt, there would be no New Testament. Most of Paul's letters are because he is trying to deal with some church division, church hurt, church scandal. And if there were no church hurt, like, Paul wouldn't need to write those letters. In fact, he's writing those letters because he's trying to address a problem and making them turn their eyes back on Jesus and return to the true gospel instead of all these false teachings. So I will say, because the church has never been a trouble-free zone, it is inevitable, given enough time, we're going to mess up. We have messed up. We have made mistakes, and we will continue to mess up, not because we're being intentional about it, but because we are flawed human beings. And it goes for your pastors, for staff, for everybody here. So I'll say this, if you've been hurt by me or any of our staff, I will just formally apologize and say, I'm so sorry, that should not have happened. A lot of times, sometimes church hurt goes on because we're unaware of it, and people just leave, and they just carry that bitterness. But I just want to say, too, like, we are not perfect, and we always strive to do our best to be authentic and transparent. So let me just kind of close in with some of this last part here. Given all the church hurt, why should you not give up on the church? Because that's really easy to do. Man, you know, and I've heard people say, especially when they've gone through church hurt, I can be a Christian and not go to church. And I would say, technically, you are absolutely right. That's right, because your salvation is not tied to your involvement in a local church. You are saved by grace alone, through faith in the finished work of Jesus alone, period. That's it. God is not up in heaven putting gold stars on your church attendance sheet. Oh, look, they came this Sunday. I'll put a little gold star, right? That is not tied to your salvation at all. You can love Jesus and not the church. So why should you be part of a local church? One word. And this is what I want to kind of talk through in this last part. One word. Why should you be involved in the local church? Formation. You being a part of the church, part of the reason and purpose is that the formation of your character into the image and likeness of Jesus Christ. You don't come here because we produce content. In fact, this is not the only place that you get content, right? You tell me about your favorite podcasters or your favorite preachers. And so you don't come here because, it's content that you're getting. You could get that in so many other places. You don't come here to meet all of your felt needs. It's not like you come here and go like, oh, I'm going to church today because, man, they got some awesome coffee. Like that may be true, but that's not why you come. You may come and it's not like, oh, I'm coming there because, man, the praise and worship time is great. That may be true, but that's not why you come. Or your kids might be like, man, I love Sunday school. Come on, let's go. Again, that may all be true, but that's not the reason why you come. That's not the purpose. Because here's the thing. You could watch online. You could watch any other number of preachers or pastors. You could listen to podcasts. You could read all kinds of spiritual books, Christian living, all that kind of stuff. And you could even customize your Spotify list to your favorite worship songs. You don't have to come here and be like, yeah, I don't know that song. Oh, yeah, I hate that song. Just customize your worship list, right? Just stay home. Why be here? Well, formation. See, you could grow in head knowledge that way, but you won't be formed because formation requires relationships. I would say this, formation requires community, and formation requires friction. How is a coal turned into a diamond? A lot of pressure over a long period of time. You won't be formed unless you go through some of the disagreements and tough conversations that need to be had. You could grow in content and head knowledge, but you're not going to grow in your love for Jesus or people or his church unless there's community and unless there's friction, which means that there is always potential for you to be hurt. Always. Christianity is not some autonomous religion. Jesus is forming a family and a new community, not just a group of individuals, each with their own private faith. Okay? So when people say, I don't have to go to church in order to be a Christian, they are technically right. Let me also say this. Technically, you could not go home and still be married, right? Right, you don't ever have to go home and technically still be married. But if you stay away long enough, it's going to affect your relationship. You're saying, I'm going to follow Jesus on my own. It's way better than just dealing with all the hassle of other people. Right, we all feel that. In fact, it's an inside joke among pastors. Church would be great if it weren't for all the people. I mean, but think about that. That's a lot like saying to my wife, let's say, Amy, you know what? I don't really like our disagreements and hard conversations and arguments that we have. Our marriage would just be so much better if you weren't around and I didn't have to deal with you. That's not going to work, right? I mean, but that's the kind of logic we use about Jesus and his church. I don't want to deal with all the people and the mess. And yes, it's messy. It's relationships, right? Our lives are not shaped by content. Our lives are shaped by relationships. So can I just say to you, if you've been hurt, whether here or somewhere else, again, I'm so sorry that you've been hurt, and it should not have happened. But I also want to urge you to not isolate yourself and to enter back into relationship when you are ready. Get back in the game. Now, some of you I know came here because you've been hurt recently. You just want to sit in the back, not get involved. You want to come late. You could come early, but you want to come late, leave early, and do whatever you want, right? And that's great. We are so glad that you are here to heal and to restore, to receive. At the same time, at some point, can I urge you to grab your jersey and get back in the game, to connect with other people in a smaller setting, in a community group, to start serving once again, and don't let bitterness conquer your heart. If you only come to church with only the mindset of, what am I getting out of this? Let me tell you, it's just a matter of time where you aren't getting much. Let me say that again. If you're coming here with the mindset of, what am I getting out of this? It's only a matter of time before you feel like, I'm not getting much. Why? Because you're just sitting around. You're not involved. You're not connected. And so I want to encourage you to step into a relationship again. There's a book, I can't remember the author, but it's called Love Like You've Never Been Hurt. And that is radical. We've all been hurt. How do we love like we've never been hurt? Enter in. I'm going to encourage you to enter into that process of formation once again. And I will unapologetically contend that you need Christian community for that process to take place in your life. I'll close with this. I love what C.S. Lewis says. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable, because to love is to be vulnerable. And so can I just say this as the last word? Your presence and solidarity, your love and your hugs, yes, even your hugs, right? The few of you who are like, I don't care if you don't like hugs, I'm coming to hug you anyways, right? Yes, your hugs, your smile, your singing, they are needed here. It's not about passively receiving something, going home, and it is about being an embodied presence of Jesus and being part of the worship gathering right here. Now, I would say this gathering is diminished by your absence. And you have a gift to share with somebody else. Whether you feel like it or not, your presence, your smile, your celebration is a gift. And so that is the calling that we have as we experience church. We lean forward because we are being formed into the image of Christ. Would you bow your heads, close your eyes, and let's pray. Lord, we bring you our church hurts, our bitterness, our resentment, some of the names and faces that we can still remember even though it's happened years ago. God, first we want to acknowledge it and say it's still there. It's still bleeding for some of us, but we want to surrender it to you. God, you are the one that became the ultimate victim, not only experiencing hurt, but betrayal and torture for our sake. And so God, as we look to you and see what you have done for us, God, would you transform our hearts from the inside out? Help us surrender this to your hands instead of holding on to that anger and resentment on our own. And so God, we love you, we praise you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Here's what I want you to do before we close our last song. This last song is called The Blessing. It's words taken from Numbers chapter 6, where Aaron, the priest, blesses the community of Israel, saying, the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you, his favor be upon you. I want you to take this card of names that you have. Maybe write down a few names that still come to mind. We're going to sing this song in 3 different ways. Some of you look at that and man, just the hurt is still raw and real. And I just want to say, you just need to receive this song, saying, yes, the Lord's favor is on you. His face turns towards you. You are not in the wrong. You are not worthless. You are not all these things that you're told maybe by somebody else. You need to receive that. That's one sense we're going to sing and pray the song. Others of you look at the names on this paper and you're like, okay, the Holy Spirit's convicting me. I need to surrender this. God, I'm still in process with this, but I'm going to give it to you. And so you're going to sing, as we sing, the Lord bless you, you're just going to surrender that to God. And I would say the last way we're going to sing this, and this is the most radical. I think one of Jesus' most radical commandments was this: love your enemies. Love your enemies. Now, these people may not be really enemies, but they feel like enemies. So for some of you, when we sing this song, you're going to sing this song of blessing and God's favor for the people on this card. So we're going to do that. Will you stand? If you're in that first camp and you're just that church hurt is real and raw, as we sing, I just want you to hold up your hands with the open palms up as a way of receiving God's favor and love towards you. Others of you take that name. You need to surrender it to God. I just want you to hold it in your hand and just say, God, as we sing this song, I'm surrendering it to you. For a few of you, You're like, yeah, I know I got to forgive. I know I got to. And this is radical. Those names on that list, I want to you put your right hand over those names. And this song that we sing, Lord bless you and keep you, you are praying it for the very people who have hurt you. That's radical. So as the band sings this last song, it's not just a song we're singing, it is a prayer of blessing. Some to us, some to the very people who've hurt us. Let's join together as we sing together.